Hey guys, it's Mr. Hussey here, 8th grade math. This is Thursday's lesson. Now, Thursday, usually we do a live class, and I still plan on doing that live class for this Thursday. But this is maybe for the students who can't make it, or just to give you an introduction to what we're doing here for Thursday's lesson. Okay, so the big idea here, we're going to build off what we did on Wednesday, which was the different types of angles, like the supplementary angles where they add up to 180, the complementary where they add up to 90, and then the vertical angles where two angles across from each other are the same measure. Okay, and hopefully that was past material. But what we did this year is we put in, 3x minus 16 for one of them, and then 2x plus 4 for the other, and then we had to use those in order to find the angle measures. Okay, so today we're going to kind of do that same sort of thing where we use some information to find some angle measures, but today there's some different angles we need to know, some different pairs of angles. They're called special angle pairs. So let's just talk real quick up here. Parallel lines are these things. Okay, so like L and M, those are parallel lines because they never intersect. Okay, when you see these two arrows like that, that shows the two lines are parallel. Okay, so to show the two lines are parallel, you could say L with those two lines, those two vertical lines, is parallel to M, and that means that this line is parallel to that line. Okay, now sometimes they also show that by drawing these little arrows on the lines like that. So if you see the arrows in the middle of the line like that, in addition to the end, that means those two lines are parallel. Okay, now there's something else. A line that intersects two or more lines is called a transversal. So in this case, this line here, that's a transversal line. Okay, it's T. It's labeled T. That's transversal. Now there's four different types of angles you're going to need to know today. And I would very highly suggest taking notes on these because I don't think you'll remember these too well if you don't take notes. Okay, so we got corresponding angles. We got alternate interior angles. We got alternate exterior angles. And then we also have consecutive interior angles. Okay, so we'll talk about what all four of these mean. Okay, corresponding angles are in the same position on the parallel lines in relation to the transversal. Okay, these angles are always congruent. So they're always the same opening, the same degree angle. Okay, so corresponding angles are congruent. So what it means here is angle 1 and angle 5. Those are corresponding. They're in the same relationship. Like it's this part of the intersection and then the same opening, that part. So these are what we call corresponding angles. Number 2 and 6 are also corresponding. How about 3? What does 3 correspond to? Hopefully you said 7. It's listed right here. But 3 and 7, I'll do those in blue. These are corresponding. 3 and 7. And you can see with your eyes that they kind of open up the same measure. So it would make sense that they're congruent. If this one's 150, then that one's 150. If 3 is 150, 7 is 150. If 6 is 30, then 2 is 30. Okay, they're corresponding, they're congruent. So if you get something like you did the other day, where 2 is like 2x plus 16, right? And 6 is like 6x minus 4, then in this case, you'll have to say this one is equal to that one, okay? This one is equal to that one, kind of like we did with the vertical angles yesterday. All right, now alternate interior angles are a little different. They are inside the parallel lines, and they're on the opposite sides of the transversal. These angles are also congruent, so they're the same size and the same shape. Let me show you what I mean by these, okay? Angles 4 and 6 are alternate interior. Okay, they're inside the two lines and they're on opposite sides of the transversal, kind of like diagonal from each other. So they're alternate interior. There's only one more set of alternate interior here, and that would be 3 and 5. So this one is alternate interior to this one. And just like the last example with the corresponding angles, these are the same number. So if this one's 120, this one's 120. If this one's 40, this one's 40. They're congruent, same size, same shape, okay? So these are called alternate interior angles. You'll need to know that. These are called corresponding angles. You'll need to know that. Okay, alternate exterior angles are outside the parallel lines and are on opposite sides of the transversal. So and these are also congruent to each other. These angles are congruent to each other. So these are very similar to the alternate interior, but they're outside these two lines. Instead of inside interior, they're exterior. Okay? So number 1 and angle number 7, those are alternate exterior. Okay? They're diagonal, they're opposite, but they're outside those two exterior, they're outside those two lines. So those two, if this one's 130, this one's 130. And there's only one more pair of alternate exterior in this example, and that's like number 2 and 8. Okay, so if one of them's 20 degrees, the other's 20 degrees. Okay, they're alternate exterior angles. All right, there's one more example we're going to need to know today, and that's called consecutive interior. Okay, consecutive interior, these are a little different than the top 3. The top 3 have something in common. They're all congruent with each other. This one isn't. So let's look at this. Consecutive interior angles are on the same side of the transversal and inside the parallel lines. That's where you get the interior from. These angles are supplementary. So supplementary means that they add up to 180. Okay? So instead of being equal to each other, they add up to 180. So in this case, we have like angles 3 and 6. They're what we call consecutive interior angles because they're on the same side of the transversal, but they're inside the two lines, interior. Okay, and then we also have angles 4 and 5. They are consecutive interior angles because they're inside the two parallel lines, interior, but they're consecutive on the same side of the transversal. Kind of like if you win consecutive championships, you win championships back to back. Okay, so that's why these are consecutive. You see 4 and 5 are consecutive, but over here 4 and 6 are alternate. These are alternate, whereas these are consecutive. All right. Now in this case, 3 and 6 do not equal each other, so you can't say this one equals that one, but you can say that this plus this, 3 plus 6 equals 180, and that's how you would solve that type of problem. Okay, so if we look at some of these problems, they're going to give you some practice here. I might have you do some of those, just naming them. Okay, so it says like, for instance, 1 and 5. So you'd have to come over here and look at, here's 1, right? And here's 5. So those are alternate, but they're not inside, they're outside. So these are alternate exterior angles. So, and then it asks if they're congruent or supplementary. And alternate exterior angles we see from the notes are congruent. So that's just a little practice naming them. But then you're going to get into some things where you're going to get into some things like this. Okay, so kind of what we did the other day. So one, you're going to have to first figure out what they are. What's their vocabulary term? So in this case, you have this one and this one. Okay, so they're inside the line, so they're interior, but they're not consecutive, they're alternate interior. So first you're going to have to say these are alternate interior angles. Okay, and then you're going to have to look back, what relationship do those have? Okay, and we know based on our notes here that alternate interior angles are congruent to each other, which means they're the same size, same shape. So in this particular circumstance, we can take the 7x minus 1 and set it equal to the 13x minus 43. And then you'll just solve like you did yesterday, and you'll get a number for x, and you'll plug that back in, and you'll be able to find the angle, okay, what each angle is. And whatever you get for this, you should get the same for that, okay? Now, that's not always going to be the case. If you find some that are like this one, number 6, these are consecutive interior. Okay, so they're inside, but they're not diagonal, they're not alternate, so they're consecutive interior. So consecutive interior is the one that's a little different. Those are supplementary, so they add up to 180. So in this case, you can't say that this equals this. That wouldn't make any sense. You're going to have to say this plus this equals 180 and solve it like you did yesterday on the supplementary ones. Okay, so that's a quick intro to today's lesson, Thursday's lesson. I will post later here which problems to do. And these are important to, finish off the year strong here. You guys are doing a great job, and finish off the year strong so you know this going into next year, 9th grade. And they'll be doing some of this next year in 9th grade. So God bless you guys. Have a great day. Take care.